Well, good morning, gentlemen. All you here on the call this morning, and those that join on Tuesday and Thursday night, even those that join online and watch this later for your own growth and recovery. As a man battling addiction, but wants to live with integrity and purity, and so it's good to have you all on the call. I'm thrilled to be able to talk about what porn is doing to your future sex life in marriage. And I've done this literally to thousands of people that are teens and 20s. Matter of fact, when I first created this talk, I did it to 1,700 youth in Chilliwack at a big conference. And I just 2 years ago in the fall, I did it to 600 junior high boys. And so I'm still doing this talk around. But it's very important that because when you use the word future sex life, it implies those men that are single. But you'll find that it is unbelievably instructional as to why you're facing some struggles you are right now in your marital sexual relationship, and even the hurdles you have with your wife. And so for those that are single, a case for why you want to deal with your porn now and not wait till after you're married to establish your victory, because now I really need to because I'm married now, and it really matters, yada yada yada. And so but it's going to be good for you. It's going to be good for those men who have sons. Matter of fact, even those men who have daughters and they're starting to date a boy at 15, 16, 17, 18, and they need to be aware of some of these things. And so my prayer is that this would be a very helpful discussion for single men, giving them reasons why they want to get away from porn, for fathers to help their sons, warn them about why it's important to stay away from porn, for you married men to go, oh my goodness, I'm glad I'm on this journey to try to get away from porn, because I never thought about all the different ways that it's affecting my relationship with my wife even now. So though we might imply that it's focused on single guys, it's beyond that, but single guys will benefit clearly, I pray. So what porn is doing to your future sex life, and we'll go from them. First of all, we live in a porn-saturated society. Porn is ubiquitous. Ubiquitous is a word that you've got to understand. Once I really fully understood it, it becomes a very powerful word. Ubiquitous means simultaneously everywhere. See, simultaneously, constant, available, simultaneously everywhere. And so porn is ubiquitous. It is simultaneously everywhere. There's, in just one generation, that means in a 20-year period, there's a 20% increase in porn use in this last generation. The younger generation of teens and 20s is viewing more porn earlier and harder porn earlier. And the sad thing, because of the movement of the internet, there's such unbelievable research not done of what so much active porn, video porn, motion porn, as opposed to still picture, because it's even more vivid, lifelike, lurid. This generation are really guinea pigs, like lab rats in a 20-year study, and we have yet to see the outcome of that, but it's really impacting them. And so I want to come alongside single men, fathers with teens, even you married men, to help you realize why it's good to stay out of porn and get out of it as soon as you can. You got to understand how big the porn industry is. Now, this is 2 years old, so my stats will be a little off, but it's close. 2 years ago, the porn industry was a $57 billion annual industry. To give you an idea how big that is, the largest oil company in the world, Exxon, is a $39 billion company. Porn annually is $57 billion. Porn brings in more annually than all of the major sports combined. NFL football, NBA basketball, NHL hockey, Major League Baseball. All of those revenues combined, porn every year smashes and beats that. Every second, 28,258 internet users are using pornography. Every second, $3,075.64 is being spent on pornography. That is $265 million and change per day being spent on porn. And remember that 90% of porn users do not pay for porn. They find free porn. How broad is the impact of porn use today? Every second, 372 every second internet users are typing some kind of adult search into the search engines. That's 32 million searches a day for something related to pornography. Sex is the #1 most popular search term item of all search engines. Sex. Porno, and pornography is ranked #4 as the 4th most common words put into search engines. Also in the top 20 word searches are nudes, nude, XXX, and Playboy are in the top 20. For children, the word sex is the 4th most common term searched for. Porn is the 6th most common one for children. 72% of males 13 to 24 are frequently using porn. That is 2 to 3 times a week. 72% of 13 to 24-year-old males, 36% of females 13 to 24 are using porn frequently. Just 6 years ago in Canada's magazine, in Time magazine, not Maclean's, in Time magazine. I have the article at my office. The magazine, the front cover said, porn, why it is killing you, something like that. Then it says this, why young men who grew up with internet porn are becoming advocates to turning it off. Understand that Time magazine has now tracked the story of men who are not Christian, not with a moral base, but are saying, if you get hooked on porn, get off it as soon as you can because it is killing you. You will not be able to have a healthy sexual relationship with a 3-dimensional person because your body is wired to a screen. It's wired to selfishness. And they give a case for it. There's 3 different sites that are not faith-based, that are not values-based, that are encouraging young men in their teens and 20s to get away from porn, stay away from porn, get off porn as soon as you can. Time magazine cover article, April 11th, just 6 years ago. I have it in my office. Porn is a bigger problem today than ever before. Why? Why is porn a bigger problem today than ever before? 4 reasons. Number 1, accessibility. 90% of teens and especially 20s in North America have access to internet, 96%. Porn is now fully mobile. This is where most people are looking at their porn on their phones. Cell phone data is the #1 source of internet access to pornography. It's accessible. It's so accessible. Number 2, it's anonymous. Nobody needs to know. There's no filters for most teens. They bypass whatever protection software parents might put on there often. Porn is anytime, any place, and it's easy to be alone. They can delete histories. And there's greater privacy and independence, so they can keep it anonymous. They can keep it a secret. That's why it's a bigger problem, because it's right here. This is my phone, and I can block, I can delete, I can do all kinds of things. So it's accessible, it's anonymous. Thirdly, it's affordable. 90%, as I said, of all porn users access only free material. And you can imagine how many are getting addicted more and more. That $57 billion annually is spent on the 10% of men and others who are looking at porn for price, for money. Addicting. So it's accessible, it's anonymous, it's affordable, and it's hugely addictive. Repeated pairing of the porn masturbation orgasm cycle gives this huge rush of hormone adrenaline It's the drug of choice, the endorphins, the enkephalins, the dopamines. It just rushes it. It's hardwired to the pleasure center of the brain. And they've determined that the level of addiction that porn use creates in the young teen and 20 is actually more addicting, or at least equal addicting, to the cocaine addiction that is such a drive that they just go paralyzed unless they get more, get more, get more. The constant pairing of the porn masturbation cycle creates a neurological pathway that, to them, this is what sex is to their mind. The danger is those in their teens and 20s up to about 26, 27, the brain is still developing. It's still in process. And especially most men get hooked in their early teens when their brain is so flexible and so many things are just in the learning stage. And what happens, this hardwiring of the brain to porn creates a strong neurological pathway, like a superhighway in the brain, and becomes unbelievably addicting. So why it's a bigger problem than any generation before is because it's so accessible, it's so anonymous, it's so affordable, and it's so unbelievably addicting. But here's what you need to hear. God created sex, and he wants your future sex life in your marriage to be amazing. And remember, anything that that God creates for us to enjoy, the enemy tries to pervert. Anything God creates to be good, the enemy tries so hard to pervert. But it starts with God created sexual intimacy as he created the humankind to interact, to procreate the way they are. And there is so much to learn about just a healthy sexual relationship, but it was God's idea, and he wants your sex life to be good, and porn actually destroys that. Very quickly, let's see what God says about sex other than no. Often that's, the line. I just remember as a young teen starting to notice shapes of girls at my high school and going, oh, why do I like that look? Why do I tempted to look there? And I'm not a young man who was looking at porn. I just was coming alive, hit puberty, and by 15 was starting to notice shapes of girls and was drawn to that. And of course, ran into masturbation sometime in those years and had to work through that. But I grew up in a very, very conservative church that the only thing, if it was ever talked about, was don't go there, don't do it. Sex is wrong. Sex is wrong. Well, no one talked about pornography and magazines and all that. So you'd never, ever, ever ask a question about that in my church, because you'd be thrown out of the church like to even ask the question. So does God say anything else but no to sexuality? So there's some scriptures here. God calls us to self-control and sexual purity. In 1 Thessalonians, we read this: it's God's will that you should be sanctified or holy, that you should avoid sexual immorality, that each of you should learn to control his own body in a way that is holy and honorable, not in passionate lust like the heathen who do not know God. And in this matter, no one should wrong his brother or sister or take advantage of him or her. God will punish men for all these sins, as you've already been told and warned. God did not call us to be impure, but to live a holy life. God implies that controls of our sexual body honors him, not to be controlled by a passionate lust. And that's what happens when you get hooked on porn. You're not supposed to take advantage of people sexually. God called us to be pure. Secondly, God calls us to avoid lust. Pornography of the heart. Matthew chapter 5, Jesus said himself in 27:28, you've heard it said, do not commit adultery. But I tell you that anyone looks after a woman lustfully or looks at porn lustfully has already committed adultery of the heart. Matter of fact, the Greek word is porneia. Does that sound familiar to something for you? The seventh commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery. Exodus 20. Looking lustfully at a person is not God's plan. It's adultery of the heart. 3, God calls us to a pure life without even a hint of sexual impurity. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 3 reads this: but among you, band of brothers in regroup, there must not even be a hint of sexual immorality or any kind of impurity, not even a hint, because these are improper for God's holy people. And so you got to understand, like if I lit a match here in my house, and you can smell the sulfur, and I just blew it out here in my office, my wife would come up later and say, did you light a match? Now, why does she say that? Because the smell of sulfur of lighting a match lingers for a while. It would take a while before it would be cleared out of the area in our home. And there can't even be a sniff of sexual impurity. Immorality, by the way, is sex outside of marriage. Impurity is going far astray from God's plan. And it says, along with any form of greed, which is, I got to have it, I want it. It becomes an irresistible porn or irresistible urge, and that's porn. You can also remember the oldest reference book in the Bible is Job, even though Genesis is the first book recorded. But Job is the oldest book. And here's one of the wisest, very godly man at the time. He said this in Job 31:1, I made a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully at a young girl. You see, there's a commitment. My goal is not to have hungry eyes and to be chasing porn. Scripture says other things. God calls us to run away from dangerous temptations. In 2 Timothy 2:22, it says, run from anything that stimulates youthful lusts. What do you think it's talking about? Run from anything that stimulates youthful lusts. Instead, pursue righteous living, faithfulness, love, and peace, and enjoy the companionship of those who call upon the Lord with a pure heart. That would be like regroup, brothers. Remember, the opposite of addiction is a connection. Run for your life and hang on to the right people is what Scripture is saying. The fifth scripture, God calls us to be faithful and keep our marriage bed pure. Clearly what it says in Hebrews chapter 13:4. Marriage should be honored by all and the marriage bed kept pure. For God will judge the adulterer. That's a person messing around after their marriage or committing adultery. And he will judge the sexually immoral. That's messing around before you're married. Because he wants the marriage bed, kept pure. We need to honor marriage by treating this covenant with respect, to keep the marriage bed pure before and after marriage. Number 6, God calls us to be captivated only by our spouse's sexuality. And for the single man, this needs to be the target of where you're going. For the married man, that's why porn is such an offense to God, because it's a violation of the covenant to be exclusive to your wife. Proverbs 5 says this, verse 18 and 19, may your fountain, that's your sexual capacity, be blessed. May you rejoice in the wife of your youth, a loving doe, a graceful deer. May her breasts always satisfy you. May you ever be captivated by her love. The point is, with the way that the brain works, God has intended that your spouse be your sexual drug. Your spouse be what you're drawn to. Rejoice means have a lot of fun with, focus on the spouse of your future or this current spouse that you have, or for this men counseling their 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, you got to save it for your wife, honey, son, save it for your wife, son, to be captivated or intoxicated, drawn to her, not drawn to porn. Song of Solomon, chapter 8, verses 6 and 7 reads this. Love is as strong as death, is jealousy and yielding as the grave. It burns like a blazing fire, like a mighty flame. Many waters cannot quench love. A deep and romantic love, not just a sexual draw, is all part of God's story. Love is faithful. It stays with someone. You don't love and leave, be it online or real people. 7, God is faithful to help us over the porn. In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13, the temptations in your life are no different than what others experience. And God is faithful. He will not allow the temptation to be more than you can stand. And when you're tempted, he will show you a way out so that you can endure. Sexual temptations are the norm for most people, but God is faithful to help you and he will show you the way out. And that's why the longer you've been in the addiction, porn, masturbation, orgasm, the more it takes people coming alongside and helping you, because clearly it's got a hold on you, it's got a grip on you, and you can't get free. Number 8, if we deny God, God gives us over to sinful, shameful desires. It's such an unbelievable depiction here. Is if you don't listen to God, he'll turn you over. He'll, well, let you go. It's your call. It's your desire. If that's where you want to go, I release you to do that. And I don't have time to go into it, but there's such a downward spiral when God gives you over to your addiction. When he says, okay, you want it? I'll go ahead, take it. And God releases them to their addiction, and they just go like a major toilet flush. And the last one I'll refer to is God warns us about giving into dangerous temptations. And we see this in James chapter 1, verse 14 and 15. Temptation comes from our own desires, which entice us and drag us away. These desires give birth to sinful actions. And when sin is allowed to grow, it gives birth to death. Because of my work with so many men who struggle with porn or sexual addiction, you can't believe how many men are telling me, I cannot believe that I've done this. I cannot believe I've gone here. And many of these men have got to more and more degrading pornography, or they've started to act outside the marriage, or and just huge things. And yeah, it'll destroy you. It'll destroy you. I mean, many marriages are destroyed because of the unfaithfulness related to porn and acting out. Many. Matter of fact, single men here, I ask you, no, I double dog dare you to ask 10 married men what their perspective on is, whether or not they wish they would have dealt with porn and had it fully behind them before they said, I do, at their wedding day. Ask them. But remember, God created sex. Sex in itself is a wonderful gift from God. He created sex, and he wants your future sex life to be awesome. So here's the deal. Here's what you got to understand. The ugly truth about porn's effect on you. The ugly truth about porn's effect on you. I'm going to give you a variety of reasons why you as a single man should get off porn. You as a married man should stay committed to stay away from porn. And you as fathers should talk to your sons about why they need to not get involved in porn. So this is the ugly truth of porn's effect on you. Porn kills love, number one. Porn is about getting. Real love is about giving. It's about romance. It's a trust relationship. It's a date with a friend, not a conquest. She's not an object. She's not a toy for my gratification. But porn kills love. And just as you saw maybe reflections of that in before I took off my coat, but understand that porn kills love. And to say I love you, but it's all about a sexual drive. That's all your needs, all for you. You got to understand that porn will kill your ability to love faithfully. It'll kill your ability to be other-centered in your love, because it's all about me getting, because that's what the porn addiction feeds. Number two, porn erodes values. Morals decline, ethics shift. Once scandalous, shameful acts that you would have never done now become normalized. Tolerance grows as porn is embraced. Tolerance, matter of fact, I'm getting used to this. It's not that big a deal. And but constant visualization creates normalization. Repeated exposure weakens every moral fiber in your body. What used to believe was wrong before is less wrong every time you use it. So porn erodes your values, number two. Thirdly, porn caters to me. It is instant gratification. Solo sex is self-centered, only about my needs and my schedule, my timing. I call it on-demand sex. And great sex with your spouse is partner-centered. It's relational. It's not object. But solo sex is one-dimensional sex. I become a master of self-pleasing. Porn doesn't make you good at closeness or intimacy. And that's what's required in marriage. I need to be good at thinking about my partner. I need to be good about getting close and being emotionally close. But porn makes you good at meeting your own needs. It caters to me. Fourthly, porn neuters young men. Yes. If you're not wondering about that, Google erectile dysfunction. You won't like it. But your brain gets so warped to respond only to porn, i.e. two-dimensional sex, like me looking at my screen talking to you. Porn gets so warped to focus only on two-dimensional sex that you're unable to enjoy real person sex later with your wife. It's like you've been castrated. You don't function. 60% of porn addicts are erectile dysfunction. They can't get it on. No erection is possible without porn. Why? Because the brain has been so wired to looking at highly stimulating action porn with a lot of variety that without that, they cannot get or maintain an erection. And cases of premature ejaculation increase because you're trying to be intimate with a real person, but you're so used to getting it on over and over for yourself, kind of instant and quick, that you don't know anything about self-control and timing, and you become a self-centered, my need focused person in the bedroom. The Time magazine said 7 out of 10 men, or 72% of those 13 to 24 that are practicing Christians are still regular at porn. 41% of those those faithful young people, 41% are looking at porn even regular, not just occasionally. It's messing up many men. Number 5, porn distorts young women. Girls are now believing that to be a sex machine is what they have to be with their guys. Girls get attention, but are now feeling unloved and uncared for. They long for respect. They long to be cherished. And women are saying, well, this is where guys are finding out about sex, I guess. So they start looking at it. And we find that up to 36% of young women in their teens and 20s are now looking at porn, even as young Christian women. So you gotta understand that they're starting to feel this need to look at porn to please guys, to kind of know how. The problem is it denies the core needs of being cherished and valued and honored. And it's just about meeting his needs. And matter of fact, the internet is the worst place in the world to learn about sexual intimacy. Porn dumbs you down. Ongoing porn fixation limits cerebral is brain, limits brain activity and growth. Research shows already that porn is actively known to shrink the brain. You say, what the heck, Currie? You trying to do scare? No. Dr. Donald Hilton, who I heard in person, he's a neurosurgeon from the University of Texas Medical School. I heard him in person. And he had screen after screen. Let me show you what happens to the brain. And he had the infrared pictures, the CAT scans of the brain of a person who looks at porn over and over. And you see the changes. It causes brain atrophy. Atrophy means slowing down. Decreased frontal lobe connectivity. It slows down. That's the reasoning portion. The more hours viewing porn, the more negative effects happen in the brain. It slows it down. It makes it go slow. That's what's happening. That's the evidence shown by science. 6 out of 10 who experience erectile dysfunction with real women are shown to have serious brain malfunction because of their long-standing use of porn. 7, porn robs innocence. The magic of marital intimacy is tarnished. Nothing is left anymore to the imagination. They've seen it all through porn. The fun of being unique and creative with your mate has all but been lost. You won't be able to be creative because you've seen it all. Nothing will be new to you. Sadly, it'll really mess up a young bride. Because if you've had, let's say you start looking at porn at 13 and you're a regular user, and then you get married at 23, that's only 10 years later. Do you understand all that you've seen and all that you've done with all of these multiple porn partners, and your wife has really seen very little of anything like this, and she has very low experience, good for her, very low visual experience, good for her, very low PMO addiction, good for her, and you come in with all of this broad experience, and it really, really robs your own innocence as well as hers. Porn breeds comparison. Seeing countless naked creatures engaging in countless sexual experiences sets you up for a lifetime of sexual evaluation of your spouse. All the people of the fantasy world are competing for the moment. Recently, I shouldn't say recently, this is now about 8-9 years ago, I was speaking in Southern Alberta, and it was a youth conference of about, I don't know, 200 kids. And one of the youth sponsor couples, they were in their 20s, they're working with the youth that are 13 to 18. They came forward and said, hey, we think we need to talk to you. I talked to them together, then I talked to them alone, and he had a horrific porn problem. And she was a beautiful young bride. They'd only been married 18 months. And talking to me privately, I quote what this young guy said. Honestly, our sex life is really boring. I would rather just go back to porn and masturbating. It's way better than sex with my wife. It breeds comparison and messes up expectations. Porn hyper stimulates. The highly over-sensualized and dramatized sex scenes flood the arousal center of the brain far beyond the real intimacy as it was designed to be by God in a healthy marital relationship. It would be like, and you all men understand the redlining in a car, where the RPMs, there's a red line in there that you shouldn't run the car past the red line for very long, and even at the red line, because it'll burn out the engine. But what happens with pornography, and you get more and more into more variety, more raunchier, you just get drawn into more, or more often, because it's like redlining it. And what happens is this overstimulation creates tolerance, just like a drug, and you have to have harder stuff to get the same buzz. And so many times this overstimulation creates a numbing, and you're not able to be connected in a healthy way with your spouse, because you're so used to this pedal to the metal overstimulation, that having a healthy time of lovemaking, you see, lovemaking is very different than having sex. Lovemaking in a marriage is a beautiful thing that includes healthy, dynamic sexual interaction, but it's about loving and connecting. Porn dehumanizes people. Number 10, it displays a harsh, degrading, and offensive version of sex that is fully dysfunctional in marriage. Partners aren't people anymore, but they're humiliated, violated, and abused. The longer the porn is, the rougher and more raw it gets. There's a rape myth out there that girls really want this. That's what's being fed. And so harshness grows with a deepening addiction. You can do the studies on men who become serial killers that rape the women. And more and more, there was a baseline of constant, regular, ongoing, deepening sexual addiction behind these men. Number 11, porn warps expectations. I implied it earlier to the young bride, but unrealistic, unfair anticipations are formed because porn drives the agenda of variation that marital intimacy should be in the mind of the young man that's getting married. And it creates extreme unhealthy pressure. expectations. Inexperience meets overexposure. You're overexposed as a young man. Can you imagine what this does to your wife? Because you've seen everything. So your level is way up here of expectation because of your exposure. And your wife is innocent and has kissed you a few times, and because of your pressure, you got involved sexually with her a few times, and she was a little bit sexual with another boy. She's never looked at porn, so her experience and expectation, what she's seen is here, and yours is way up here. And you come into this marriage, and it creates unfair expectation. Imagine the honeymoon inequity, where the expectations are so different. And she's feeling pushed and pressured for her to do things that you saw in porn. And it doesn't mean that some of the things that you saw couldn't be included in your healthy sex life. But the problem is, it's your agenda, it's your push, it's your demand. And even asking the question, where did you get that idea from? Well, you don't have to ask that question. And I do not want your young wife to be an extension of one of your online fantasies or one of your online visualizations. I don't want you to be using your spouse. Many partners of sex addicts tell me that they feel prostitutized in their own bedroom. They're simply a sexual receptacle
Still going.
for the greed of the partner's porn-addicted sexual energy. Number 12. Porn crushes you emotionally. A private sex life of porn is shrouded in shame and increases aloneness, moving you away from both others, and it moves you away from God. It crushes you emotionally. Guilt, shame, embarrassment, feeling addicted, helpless, trapped. You lie, you hide, you fear being discovered, so you isolate yourself from others. You're not emotionally close to your spouse. You feel distant from God because God can't forgive me. I can't believe I'm doing all this. Oh, if people knew this, and it just really messes you up emotionally. Number 13, porn violates God's plan. Porn is clearly outside God's design for relationship and separates us from Him. Porn messes up people in the long term. God has a better idea. In a home in Saskatchewan, I built the home, and I have a really nice wood fireplace in it. And because I built the home, I know by law there has to be a hearth, a little platform that's non-flammable, and it has to be 16 inches past the edge of the fireplace. So if a log rolls out, it rolls on this tile so that it won't start a fire in the house. Now, remember, the big idea is God created sex and He wants your future marital intimacy to be awesome. But you go to my house back in Saskatchewan and you see that fireplace and you turn down the lights, because I had a nice dimmer switch, and there's a beautiful ambiance, there's a romance, there's a warmth, the cold prairie nights to have the warmth of the fire. You cuddle up, pull the chairs closer, and put your feet up on the, on the hearth there. And it's just a beautiful, you grab your beverage of choice and you sit with your spouse, and it's just a wonderful thing. That fire is a beautiful, beautiful gift. But if a log rolls out and goes 16.5 inches, and that burning log falls onto my carpet and we're already in bed, understand the same fire that was beautiful, warmth, romantic, beautiful ambiance destroys, kills, maims, destroys my home, burns it down, and could kill my wife and kids and I, because it's not in the right place. The log 16.5 inches outside where it was intended to be kills, maims, burns, and destroys. So, what to do to win the battle with porn? I'm speaking now specifically to single men. Others are going to benefit, but this is the single guys who are not married yet. Quit making excuses. Justifying a life of ongoing sexual relapses because you're not married is lame, selfish thinking, and displays a weak mind and will. Quit making excuses. It's not fair. Guys that are married, they can have sexual release and I can't. Well, just because they're married doesn't mean it's always happening, but I want you to know something. They've done the research that married people have a regular sexual intimacy way more than single people who think they're playing around and all this stuff. But anyway, quit making excuses. Number two, bravely ask around. I said this earlier. Do you know how many married men would do anything to be able to go back and start fresh by getting into marriage with their addiction fully behind them? You know how many would? All of them. All of them. They wish they would have dealt with it earlier. They'd encourage you to deal with it now. How many scores of married men who have brought travesty into their marriage because of their porn addiction, or even acting outside the marriage as they continue to allow the addiction to take hold of their life? The spouses are hurting like crazy. But ask around. Do they wish they would have dealt with it sooner? 3, be committed to your future wife or your present wife. Faithfulness to your wife starts right now. Remember, it says, keep the marriage bed pure, marriage bed undefiled. Honor her by establishing purity and stability in your recovery right now. That lady that you're going to walk down the aisle with, I did this for you. I dealt with it 2 years before I met you. And now I've been clean 1,000 days before we get married. Oh, what a gift to her. Instead of bringing in your dysfunctional, self-centered, porn-addicted view of intimacy. It's not. It's just sexual selfishness. Number 4, your mind flush is long overdue. Mind flush, flushing out your mind of all this stuff. Estimate how many sexual scenes you viewed. Cleaning your mind from all these images is a 2-year plus process. I anecdotally say 2 minutes, 2 years. You watch something for 2 minutes, it's available in your memory bank for 2 years. 2 minutes, 2 years. And so you need to go to work at flushing your mind. Why should your wife, your future wife, start with you overexposed to a self-absorbed, selfish, and an objectified form of sex? Great starting place for your new marriage. And number 5, get with the program. Literally, it works. Get with the program. Don't miss regroup. Work your butt off. Finish the 12th step. Reach out to other men to connect and to be accountable to those men. Get with the program. Don't minimize. Don't skip. Don't, well, I couldn't make it. Oh, come on. Get with the program. Stay faithful. Get this behind you. Get that full mind flush. And the last thing is seek God daily. You will need God to be your advocate in your battle over porn addiction. Daily be in prayer. Daily be in his word. Daily be in fellowship with other men who are trying to grow stronger in their faith. Work hard to fill the void, but seek God daily. And I close with these 3 statements. Remember the big idea. God created sex, and he wants your future marital intimacy to be awesome. It's not that sex is wrong. No, God created it. But sex, like the fire, needs to be in the fireplace. The burning log on my carpet is the porn, is the unfaithfulness. It's going to destroy everything. God's plan for sexual intimacy is so far better than porn. Just trust him. Trust him. So you single guys, trust him that the more you let the addiction get a hold of you before you're married, the more you'll end up having a dysfunctional sex life where your spouse feels so devalued. And remember, single men especially, but for all of us, boys make excuses, men make changes. So there's a snapshot of what porn is doing to your future sex life and married, if you're single, and what it'll do to your current sex life and marriage if you're married. And my prayer is that you would have good talks to the young men in your world, good talk to your friends that are single, that you would make choices, that you would talk to your sons, you would talk to your youth groups, you would warn people, and that this talk would be one that you'd come back to over and over again, realizing that I don't want porn to kill my ability to love my wife. I don't want this to happen. May God help you be brave. May God help you dig in. May God help you quit making excuses and justifications and minimizations and rationalizations that allow you to stay locked in your addiction. This is a stern warning, but one given in love. If you could see what I see in my office every week, you would wish, single men, that you'd get off porn now. I love you.